Here. What's up, guys? We're here. John Cena versus Randy Orton. One last time. WWE Backlash is in the books from St. Louis, and we'll let you guys hop on in and we'll talk about it. What took place, 5 matches on the card, as usual, the WWE special for this particular show. And I don't think it would probably be too surprising, the outcomes here as we talk about it. There was one that I think was maybe a little surprising for some people. But we'll talk about it as we jump into the card. As always, jump in, let me know your thoughts, your scores, your grades, all that good stuff as you hop in. What did you think of this PLE from WWE Backlash, the fallout from WrestleMania 41? And I see you guys starting to hop in and share your thoughts. Yeah, this was a card going in. As you know, we talked about it. It was probably not one that really, was much more than kind of just, hey, this is John Cena versus Randy Orton one more time, right? I mean, that was what this whole thing was built on. And so it was really going to be, would the other things sort of deliver? You kind of knew that it was going to be a hard sell, I think, for Orton to beat John Cena in his first title defense, given everything they did to get to that point, to set the record. And so it was going to be tough to make people think that Orton was going to actually win. Well, they did as much as they could in that main event to try to make that happen. Ref bump after ref bump after ref bump. You had RKOs everywhere, Nick Aldis included. Plenty of WWE officials took ref bumps. The announce table took a bump. All kinds of stuff to try to sell us on the idea that Orton was going to win. Did not happen. But I'm going to tell you in a minute why I don't even really think the match was the biggest story coming out of this. I think it was what happened after the match that I think could be the most intriguing thing with John Cena as we move forward. But for now, again, you guys are starting to hop in. Let me know what you thought about the show. And you guys are not holding your thoughts back so far. And we're just going to jump into some of the comments. We'll throw them on the screen here as we usually do. And we'll see what you guys have to say. Appreciate some of you jumping in. As always, good to see you here in the live chat, as we always do after the PLEs. And, talk more about what happened there. Corey's going to weigh in and say that was, without question, the worst event that Corey has ever seen. Jaden here going to say, hey, Cena's new finisher, the low blow and the title shot to the head. That is the ultimate combination for John Cena right now, since the AAs aren't getting it done. Yeah, he had a lot of AAs in this match, but once again, Cena goes back to the low blow, goes the title shot. I'm going to try to wrap that up into what I think is they're headed towards, and we've talked about it before, but I'm going to bring it up again based on what they did after the show went off the air. If you did watch after they do, the usual stuff where here's your executive producers, there's Paul Levesque, there's Lee Fitting, all that kind of stuff. But then what they did after that with Cena, I think, is going to be the real story of this whole thing moving forward. So, all right, people are weighing in here, calling it a glorified Monday Night Raw. But that is, we're going to see what everyone else thinks about this. DeAndre is going to give it a 5 out of 10. And as always, we'll jump into our thoughts. If you are joining for the first time, this is a reaction show. It's not a review show. We will not be reviewing every single match, move by move, or anything like that. I open it up to you guys. You tell me what you think. We'll talk about it and go from there. I'll share some thoughts on all this. And yes, we will all talk about as well. I think one of the more notable things from the show, Jeff Cobb finally debuted, and always been a big Jeff Cobb fan. We'll talk about him here in just a minute. But let's go ahead and jump into it. Let's start with the main event. We usually do that because, well, that's what everybody's talking about coming out of the show. And it was John Cena defeating Randy Orton one last time. WWE Undisputed Championship, Undisputed WWE Championship, whichever way you want to word it. That's what happened here. And, this was really something I thought that, again, as I said at the beginning, how are you going to convince people that Orton could win? And, they went with the route of this was like your Attitude Era sort of finish, right? It was all about, hey, let's try everything we can and throw as much at you as possible to sort of see if, we can sort of fool you into thinking that Orton's going to find a way to win this thing. And there were a couple times there, right, where they're doing everything they can, all this stuff. But it is definitely something where, hey, they threw the kitchen sink at you. They threw everything they possibly could, but somehow John Cena still manages to win. Now, we know one of the reasons John Cena managed to win is because R-Truth comes in. R-Truth, a long-time supporter of John Cena, R-Truth. It's going to really be a special moment when John Cena takes the boots to R-Truth and beats him down in the middle of the ring, because we all know that's going to happen at some point. And so that was certainly something that played out. And yes, you did kind of continue to have the theme that Cena will do anything necessary to keep this championship. And that was really the story here, right? Is that John Cena, once again, just like he did at WrestleMania 41, there was no Travis Scott this time. This time it was R-Truth getting involved to a lesser extent. But Cena capitalizing and being able to go back to that combination of the nut shot and then the title shot. That's what did it for John Cena to retain the championship. And so, where do we go from here, right? I think that was kind of the story of the match. You can, again, grade the match on however you want to think. I've seen some of you guys say, hey, I thought the main event was fine. Some of you guys did not like the main event. Understood, because, again, it was a very sort of heavily outside interference type thing, right? And not just meaning from people getting involved, also just all the things, right? The ref bumps and everything like that. So it was a quick turnaround, I think, as Brian notes here. We said that was going to be one of the challenges with the show. It's just such a quick turnaround from WrestleMania 41. You were not going to build the next greatest card ever, right, this quickly. Also, remember, knowing that you have Saturday night's main event coming up in 2 weeks, which we know now is going to be Jey Uso versus Logan Paul for the World Heavyweight Championship. That may be your headliner, one of the top matches on that card, no doubt. You also have Money in the Bank coming a couple weeks after that. So a very sort of tough, kind of scheduling thing. We have to throw all this stuff at everyone. And so they sold this story, this PLE on that story, right, on John Cena versus Randy Orton. And so for R-Truth to get involved, they're clearly setting up something with Truth because it is going to be kind of that emotional thing. And I think that's where we're going to tie in everything that happened at the end of this, because this is now going to be something. If you watch what happened as they're going off the air, right? It's still streaming. So it used to be, all right, they do the little end scene, the credits and all this other stuff, and then boom, you go into whatever. But now, it keeps going, right? Because you're watching it on streaming and all this other stuff. But what happens is the crowd is, chanting at Cena. They're sending all the profanities Cena's way and all this stuff. And you're seeing John Cena being affected by it, right? You also see, you literally almost saw John Cena burst into tears as he's standing ringside. He gets out of the ring. The fans are still booing him. They're all over him. But he's starting to think about it, right? He's getting in his mind. He's got to get his mind right. It's getting to him now. He's like, hold on a second. Like, what? I just did this again, right? What have I done? I just did this to my longtime rival, Randy Orton, in his hometown, and this is the response I'm getting, right? Continue. The people just pouring it on. They're pissed at John Cena. They don't like John Cena anymore. Some people never liked John Cena. But he now knows that everybody. And one of the shots, if you go back and look at it, Cena's walking down the aisle. He's really thinking about this. You can tell he's in deep thought. And he walks by one of the kids. There's a kid right there hanging over the side of the barricade, right? And you can tell Cena's just kind of do a little side-eye action to the kid because the kid's pissed off. Kid's not happy that John Cena has done this again, right? That's what they're doing here. Like, I've got to think that's the direction we're headed in. And you guys know we talked about that when he turned heel at Elimination Chamber, the big shocking moment. Like, throw all the stuff out with The Rock and everything like that. This was always going to be, if you're going to do this, now the story is no longer, can John Cena win number 17? We knew that Elimination Chamber. Like, they're going to have to speed this thing up a little bit. He's got to win the title now. He can't win the title in December. He's got to win it now because of what they just did. So he wins the title, and now it becomes all about, how can John Cena find his way? How can John Cena get back on track, right? That has to be the direction they're headed in. You think that's probably the story they're going to tell here. And so you feel like he almost hits a breaking point here after the match where it's John Cena again, kind of giving that thought to everything, the atmosphere. We said this whole show was going to be about the atmosphere. So it's Cena sitting there giving this deep thought to the atmosphere. It's rattling him a little bit. Again, you almost see him get emotional here. And so that is like your next step into what is eventually, again, going to be the redemption tour for John Cena, whether that's November, whether that's December, whenever it is. And so that's clearly where we're headed. And I think this is a good question here too. Is it a little too early to start that, right? Do we start that now? Well, here's why I think maybe it's not, because you can tell it's getting to Cena. Maybe that's what they wanted to play up here. But they didn't want to do it so intentional that, you're just sitting here thinking, all right, well, now I'm really thinking about this. Because why? Now we got to get through John Cena having to do the tough thing with R-Truth. And by the way, I can tell my internet's kind of going out a little bit. It'll catch up in just a minute. So if it freezes for a little bit, you guys know sometimes it happens. So bear with me. You can listen. The video may not always be the most clear. But stick with me on this one, because this is where now you have to basically do something with R-Truth to where Cena's thinking about it. He's thinking about it. He's like, all right, he's getting a little bit of that thought. Have I gone too far? Have I reached the point of no return? Well, he's not yet. He's not even close to the point of no return. So whenever he takes out R-Truth, whenever that happens, because they got to do it, you got to have John Cena versus R-Truth at this point. And look, I mean, it's not going to headline a PLE probably, I wouldn't think. But, I mean, you're doing this for the final time with John Cena. It's the farewell tour. You got to kind of hit all the notes, right? And so R-Truth and John Cena, there's been that connection before in the past and those kind of things. It's kind of that little side thing you can tie in here. But after this, maybe it becomes the main thing before you hit the next big John Cena, match, which, as we said, I mean, if you're looking at the remaining options, to me, there are clear two, right? It's CM Punk and it's Cody Rhodes. Those are your clear two more options for John Cena for the high profile matches. There could be others out there too, but you got to do those two before Cena calls it quits. And so, from that perspective, I think it's still a long road to get there with Cena, but you can tell they're already dropping a couple of these early things our way to say, it is the redemption story. It has to be. What else are you going to tell with John Cena now that he's done this? And like we said, if you'd have added The Rock into this thing for the full ride and everything, then maybe that changes our perspective a little bit. But right now, there's no reason to think that because there's no reason to think The Rock's going to even be involved again, maybe. And there's also, again, no reason to think that Cena's just going to go out this way because he's letting out all the frustration with the fans. And so now, eventually, it's going to be one where, all right, get it off your chest, get that out of your system, but you got to come back. You got to come back around to the hustle, loyalty, respect, right? And whether the fans receive him well or not by that time in November or December, hey, that's on them. But John Cena's got to make his way back, and I think he's going to have to do some things, when it comes to probably going to have to take out R-Truth. He's going to have the match with Punk. He's going to have the match with Cody. But I don't know what order that's in, and that's going to be the interesting part as we go through this. But look, I thought the main event was... it's about what you expected. I mean, you can't just, go in expecting this to be a 60-minute technical classic or anything between these two. It was never going to happen. You were going to have to throw out a lot of stuff. And it was all action because you just had lots of stuff being thrown everywhere once things started to pick up after the initial start. And so, yeah, I mean, like I said, listen, if you guys watched in the Attitude Era, and even if you didn't, I mean, you probably know of some of the more memorable matches. Like, that's just what happened, right? I mean, that was just something that always happened, kind of in that era. And so that was sort of your typical Attitude Era type thing. And so, yeah, I mean, Cena cheating, he had to do it again. Like, this couldn't just be a straight up Cena win where he just wins clean, right? He had to keep cheating because that's who John Cena is now. But what's going to cause him to basically go back the other way, right? That's the story I think you've got to tell now the rest of the way as you get into matches with Truth, with Punk and Cody and whoever else is going to be there with that. So, all right, let's get into some of your thoughts here as we'll talk about this main event, and then we'll go into everything else on the card as we usually do. But again, guys, if you're hopping in for the first time, be sure to leave your grades for the show, all that stuff. And if you're joining for the first time, as always, hey, hit that subscribe button. Always helps out the channel. We appreciate you guys. We're going to see what else happens here with John Cena coming out of this. You guys know I'll have more thoughts probably in other videos. But I want to get to some thoughts here from Hardball. Always joins in. Always appreciate the insight. The Cena heel turn. Such a storyline with no water, he says. WrestleMania screamed The Rock's involvement, and it screamed in the Backlash main event as well. No redemption tour due to The Rock. Yeah, I mean, like we said, at this point, I think it's just pretty clear that there is not going to be anything with The Rock in the foreseeable future, if at all, during this run, which will, if that happens, right? Let's just say, let's play it out that way. Let's say The Rock doesn't appear again in this John Cena storyline. Then we're really going to look, I mean, we were harsh on it after WrestleMania 41, I think, as we should have been. But we're really going to look back on it then and say, why in the world was that ever a possibility, ever anything that you could consider to do that at Elimination Chamber if this was never going to have any sort of payoff? We will definitely be able to look back at that and say that with much further I think, vitriol maybe towards that. So, I just don't think, again, we knew when The Rock came out, did the little thing we talked about on Pat McAfee's show afterwards, kind of explaining everything. You knew he was just not, he's not going to be in this thing, period, moving forward. So maybe it happens towards the end sometime, but we'll see. All right. Remember, best way for me to get to your comments, a nice super chat always helps out the channel as well, so you guys can leave a super chat. Let me know your thoughts on stuff. I'm going to try to keep up with the comments, but as always, we had a lot of people hopping in here, and so I will try to just grab the ones that I see coming through. So, all right, let's grab a couple more here before we jump into some other stuff, and let me pull these up here as you guys. By the way, there were also some things I saw on Twitter/X afterwards. CM Punk was kind of teasing something with Cody, or excuse me, with Cody. Maybe he'll do something with Cody at some point. But with Cena, that's kind of being teased out there from Punk, which again, we know that's not a surprise. It's going to happen at some point. Also, I saw that, I think it was WrestleVotes on Twitter, put out, let me see if I can find this here. It says, according to a report from a news outlet, Cena's last match is officially scheduled for Boston, Massachusetts, of course. That is no surprise, probably, given John Cena there, for December. So that is something that is notable. At least that is a report that seems to be out there right now, seeing this on Twitter/X. So would that surprise anyone if John Cena's last match is then? No, it would not, because, hey, I mean, it's going to happen in December. It's going to happen in Boston. You can't think of sort of a more fitting setup for Cena there with that. So, yeah, so that is something notable. We always say we try to keep up with this stuff immediately right after. Also, something else coming out, Drew McIntyre. I know there was a report earlier talking about how McIntyre was getting checked on or whatever. Seems like Triple H just commented, said that Drew McIntyre, a little banged up is the quote I'm seeing, but totally fine. So that's your update on Drew McIntyre. So let's jump into some of these other things real quick, and then we'll get back to everything else. Remember, we just continue to talk about everything, but as always, I'll jump into my thoughts on all the other matches, and then we'll get back to everything else. Irish Sam has jumped in. Good to see Irish Sam. A long time Irish Sam is here on the channel. What in the R-Truth did I just watch again? Cena, please. Ruin wrestling by just appearing. Irish Sam, you're the best. Always appreciate you hopping in. I know it's late where you are, but always appreciate your support of the channel. Yeah. We'll see what happens with this. John Cena versus R-Truth. That's going to be quite a spectacle. But where does Randy Orton go from here? We'll ask that question maybe in just a bit as well. All right, to get back to Drew McIntyre, he was part of that four-way match, as we know, with Jacob Fatu and all of that. And yeah, I thought that was probably the best match of the show. That was incredible. I thought the four-way match to open it up with Jacob Fatu successfully defending the championship, or it wasn't the opening match, was it? Yeah, it was the opening match. Sorry, it was a long time ago. So, yeah, Jacob Fatu successfully defends against Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest, and LA Knight. And I thought it was all gas, no brakes, right? To quote a wise man himself. But, yeah, listen, Jeff Cobb makes his debut. Some people are asking about Jeff Cobb. I mean, again, I've always been a big Jeff Cobb fan. I just think, yeah, like Jeff Cobb and Jacob Fatu. I said this, Michael, bringing up your comment here. I said on Twitter, actually, I put this out as soon as I saw it. I was like, hey, Jeff Cobb versus Jacob Fatu, as soon as this match, I sign me up. Like, these are my guys right here. Like, these two beating the hell out of each other. I can't wait for that one. It's the Big E special, right? What is it? Big meaty men slapping meat, or whatever Big E always says. That was his tagline, I think, for this match. But yeah, so Jeff Cobb gets involved here. Jacob Fatu winning, not a big surprise. We figured that was going to happen. Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest taking each other out. Like I mentioned, the update on McIntyre seems like he's a little banged up, but seems to be fine per Triple H. So not a huge development for them to take each other out again. Priest screws over McIntyre again. That's what Michael Cole was pushing. They get out of the match. That allows Fatu to beat LA Knight. And then, again, Jeff Cobb comes in as Solo Sikoa, seemingly the new part of this new army that Solo's trying to build. You know, Tongaloa is out. Tama Tonga's out. So they're out with, injuries or whatever. So this kind of gives you something you can go to now, and it kind of adds in that intrigue with, what's going to happen now with Jacob Fatu and Solo, which we know they've been building for a while. I mean, we were saying, months ago? We're like, are they going to get to Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa at WrestleMania? It seemed like the most obvious direction, but they, as always, are letting this thing burn and burn and burn. And now that you got Jeff Cobb thrown into the mix, yeah, I would say if you haven't watched Jeff Cobb before, go find some matches on YouTube, wherever. dude's just a beast. I think, listen, I'm someone who said probably 5 years ago, I'm like, I'd love to see Jeff Cobb in WWE, then. And now it's this many years later. So, yes, he's gotten a little bit older, but dude can still go. And again, you talk about just an absolute powerhouse. And Jeff Cobb, I mean, you've kind of seen what he's done over the years, whether it's ROH, AEW, New Japan, like he's kind of been everywhere. And yeah, I mean, he's a stud, and I'm excited to see when they get to Jacob Fatu versus Jeff Cobb, which we know has got to happen at some point. But for now, we got to have a little bit of that tension. What's Jacob Fatu think about this? Didn't seem like he was too happy with what Solo was doing, a little plan maybe outside of Jacob Fatu's orbit there to bring in Jeff Cobb. So, yeah, I think that we're obviously going to get to something there with that, and I think, again, it should be a lot of fun now that we've kind of gone in this separate way here with this rogue version of the Bloodline. Now you've got kind of the Solo part of things, that Jacob Fatu is becoming this big superstar. Remember, too, we said not long ago, I mean, that was probably 5-6 months ago. I don't remember the timeline, but we're thinking, that was the time frame when you're wondering, all right, when is Jacob Fatu going to destroy Solo Sikoa, right? But there just became a time, and I feel like we've mentioned this a few times since then, where it's like, this is not going to go the way we thought it would maybe a year ago, or however how long ago, Jacob Fatu's been there. Because at one point, it's like, all right, well, Jacob Fatu's got to destroy Solo, take over the Bloodline, all this other stuff. Now, Jacob Fatu's become too big of a star now, to where he's got to be the guy that, again, the fans are simply not going to, they're not going to boo Jacob Fatu. Just not going, the dude's too impressive. You can't do it. And so, Solo's going to be the guy who's clearly going to be in that heel role now in the story, whereas initially we looked at it and thought, all right, how are they going to work this? Can you really get people to cheer Solo? Jacob Fatu has been presented too well, I think, to ever kind of be in that position right now. So, yeah, that's the story coming out of this. For McIntyre and Priest, you've got to think, hey, they just are those career rivals now that are locked into each other some way, somehow. And so where LA Knight goes from here, I just feel like LA Knight's kind of in that spot where, hey, he had the U.S. title runs a couple times, but now, he's just kind of that guy that's sort of in that upper tier of the card. But, is he world championship level or anything like that right now? Probably not. So Jacob Fatu wins, and I thought, yeah, just another impressive outing for Jacob Fatu. How can you not be impressed with this guy? So, all right, elsewhere on the show, let's talk about, and again, we'll get back to your questions and comments, guys, on some of this stuff, and we'll talk more about it after I just give you some quick thoughts. I went a little long on that match, but, well, it involved Mr. Fatu, so of course I went a little long on that one. Penta did not win the Intercontinental Championship from Dominik Mysterio. Dominik wins that one. Again, we kind of figured something like that would play out. And no surprise, really, to see, Judgment Day get involved. You had El Grande Americano come out. Chad Gable clearly was not in the arena tonight, but El Grande Americano was, as he came out and got involved. And so, like we said, I mean, Dominik was going to win this match. I didn't think Penta would win. You knew they would kind of do some things, whether it was Judgment Day, whether it was, Americano getting involved. That's kind of how it all went here. But to me, this is ultimately setting up the Lucha Bros. They got to get together now, because Penta, at every turn, whether it's the Judgment Day, whether it's with Gable and American Made, Penta just doesn't have the backup he needs, right? And so I think this is starting to get to a point where you can bring together Penta and Rey Fenix. I know, they've kind of been split on Raw and SmackDown, but like I said, whether they do the draft, whatever that looks like over the next, month or so, I still think we're clearly setting up, the likelihood that they're going to become more of a tag team type element in WWE, which to say that they can do that, but also be singles guys, right? Because we've seen them do it. So I think that clearly this is something where you can sort of play this out, knowing that Penta just needs more backup. If he's going to ever, get that Intercontinental Championship, if he's ever going to be able to kind of, keep these other two at bay with Judgment Day and American Made, he's got to have some people behind him. And that's where Rey Fenix dropped what? I don't know, it was last week, the week before on SmackDown. He said, you kind of have something where it was along the lines of, there's only one guy I trust in WWE, which we know he was alluding to with that. It's his brother, right? And so I think that's what's coming with this. And, hey, Irish Sam wants to know, are we going to get Finn and Dom at SummerSlam? Again, 2-night SummerSlam. Let's not forget that. I think absolutely is probably where you're headed with that, because you get a little more time to let this play out over the next, several months. And like we said, they're going to be in no hurry when it comes to storylines like that. So I think it's a good call, Irish Sam. I think, Finn versus Dominik may be in the cards once you get there. And, hey, we'll see if the championship is involved or not. Maybe Finn costs Dominik the title by that point. Who knows? Or maybe that's where Finn beats Dominik for the championship. So we'll find out, but I like that. It's a good call on that. So, all right. By the way, I'm going to keep some of your questions here, talking about Truth and Cena. We'll get back to that. DevsFan125. We'll get back to it here in just a bit. All right, a couple other matches to talk about, and then we'll kind of go back around to your questions and comments on everything there, guys. All right, Lyra Valkyria retains the championship against Becky Lynch. This is one that did surprise me a little bit. As I said in the predictions, I thought Becky was going to win this match, and I thought that it was really just going to be kind of your typical thing, right? Where, all right, Becky comes back, you want to keep this thing going further. Well, all right. She's got to win the title, right? Becky comes back, wins a couple championships in her first 2 matches, and really plays into the heel type stuff, But, clearly they go with Lyra getting the win here, and I like the way they did it in terms of, hey, just being able to kind of pull this match out at the very end. You're doing these little pin sequences, and she just manages to get enough, right? Just manages to get that 3 count on Becky. Becky goes after the match, and of course, Lyra took a shot right to her nose. And Michael Cole's playing up, hey, she got a broken nose or something. That's an injury update I want to hear. I want to know how Lyra Valkyria is doing, because I did think, she was kind of, I thought she took a pretty good shot right there to the nose. And so now I think you kind of wonder what's the next step, right? Because as Hardball brings up here too, and that was what I was going to get into after this, the thing with Lyra winning is that now you've still got to get Bayley added into the mix, right? Because Bayley has got to come back into the fold here. And I think because of that, how do you play this thing out? All right? Because, you've got to do Becky versus Bayley at some point. And again, that may be one that you do, who knows, right? Are both of them involved in the women's Money in the Bank match? Something like that, potentially, we'll see. They got a lot of women at their disposal in terms of like the rising stars. You may not need those 2 involved there. But you've got to do that match at some point. How does Lyra play into it? Bayley's had a shot before, but it was kind of something that I was curious about. All right, people are giving me updates on the press conference. People telling us that our truth, Hardball says, has just ruined the press conference. So we're gonna jump into that. But before we do, I will quickly tell you again, I thought it was a good match. Lyra and Becky, I think, again, a little surprised by the finish, but I'm kind of glad that Lyra won because I think I'm more intrigued by what they do. Just to, again, see what happens here. And let's see what happens with, how this whole thing will play out between Becky moving forward, because you've got to think Becky's going to get that championship at some point soon, right? But this is probably not just a one-match series. And so let's see how it goes from here. But, I thought hard-hitting match between those two, and Lyra definitely took the harder of the shots, potentially, with that one she took to the nose there towards the end. All right. We're going to quickly get back around to things after we talk about Gunther, Pat McAfee. This was not as much of a destruction as I thought it would be. I know they really played it up on commentary that McAfee was just getting his ass beat, and he did. But, you thought Gunther would take it like even further, right? But it's Gunther. When he hits you with a chop, that may be all you need, and McAfee took a hell of a chop from Gunther. Took a couple of them, but one of them just, I think WWE put out the tweet, and it was just McAfee's facial expressions. I'll see if I can pull it up, if I can find it. But McAfee's facial expressions where he just took an absolute shot. And so that sort of is going to be interesting. All right, so listen, we're going to get back to that in a minute. I just saw the highlights. I'm going to pull it up right now. But apparently, what just happened in the press conference? My thoughts on Gunther, Pat McAfee. Gunther beat Pat McAfee. There's my thoughts. All right. John Cena is sitting at the table in the post-show press conference. And by the way, I'm going to link this to you guys in the chat. You should be able to find this. I'm going to link it right here in the comments. Click on that right there. And so, John Cena has had enough of our truth. Just as we said earlier, we knew we were going to get to this. John Cena has had enough of our truth. And Big Match John, the last real champion, has just sent our truth through a table at the press conference. Oh, you hate to see it. You hate to see it. He snapped. Everything we said earlier, you know what? John is an emotional mess right now. He's an emotional mess. And he'd had enough of our Truth's antics. He sends that young man through the table. I don't think Truth's that young anymore, but we're going to call him that young man. R-Truth just gets sent through the table in the press conference. So, just as we talked about a half hour ago when we started the show, yes, we're clearly headed towards that, and I'm going to bring up the question that was asked, and I think it was, Dev's fan, to get back to this one. Truth versus Cena at Saturday night's main event. You would think by doing that at the press conference instead of waiting until Raw or something like that, that's sort of a, hey, we're going to speed this thing up as quickly as we can. And so you would think that's probably a possibility. John Cena, R-Truth, Saturday night's main event. As we said, we already know Jey Uso and Logan Paul is going to happen there, but it's Saturday night's main event, right? It's something where you need some of those headline type, stories, and John Cena has to be on that show. I would think, right? John Cena has to be there. So, Truth, the most logical choice with that. And so, I think, and look, this is an opportunity too. If you do Truth versus Cena, you can kind of, do it the same way in a sense that, I'm not going to say it's Pat McAfee versus Gunther, but, right, it's someone that you clearly look at as the ultimate underdog here in that scenario where you're facing someone like John Cena, someone like Gunther, as we said. So we're kind of tying this in a different direction. But what it does is it now gives you the opportunity to where, okay, Truth can try, and okay, he comes up short. But you feel like this is an opportunity too at Saturday night's main event, doing this on NBC, you have to shoot a big angle here, right? You got to do something big. You got to get us pointed in the direction of what's going to be next for Cena after he disposes of R-Truth. And like I mentioned, is that where you start to then heat up the Punk thing? Now, the thing is, Punk, as we know, has got his hands full elsewhere. Punk's got his hands full with, Braun Breaker and Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman right now. And, of course, Roman Reigns and all that kind of stuff. So, do you wait and do Punk at the end? Is Punk the guy that ultimately, is the person that, sort of is the final chapter for John Cena? Because if you're really thinking about it, right, we talk about, they just did Orton. We know you're not getting Orton as the final person now. So you've got to think it's got to come down to Cody and Punk. Like, those have to be, one of those guys has to be the final opponent for John Cena. And I think that any other person, right, at this point, it's hard to kind of connect the dots and figure out who that would be. You could do someone that Cena doesn't have that long history with, and you could build that up over the next several months, and somehow we get to that point. But I think for now, where we are at this point, it's those two, and it's one of the two, right? Is it going to be Punk? Is it going to be Cody? Or one of them going to be the final opponent? Like we said, it's a 2-night SummerSlam. So you've got to think Cena's got a big title match there. Is it Cody? Is it Punk? And then maybe whoever it's not, that's who gets, maybe the final match. As we said earlier, if you just jumped in, there was a report out there that Cena's last match is going to take place in December in Boston. And so it's ultimately fitting, right? That's where it should be. And so if that's, and look, we said, remember, we tied this in earlier and we talked about the emotional thing with Cena, having to get him back around to the good side, right? He's not the bad John Cena, he's the good John Cena. Well, if you're putting in a situation where the final chapter of the redemption tour for John Cena is going to be him being cheered, him standing in the ring for the final time and getting the cheers, right? Not getting the boos and all this other stuff. Well, there's no better place to do it than Boston, Massachusetts. And so to kind of be in that position, that's what you want. And so that's where, do you put him against a Punk in that scenario? I brought up the history before between John Cena and CM Punk. Going back to the Chicago, right? Money in the Bank. Remember the atmosphere, the setting. Wouldn't it be kind of ironic that the final match for Cena is sort of flipped maybe to where you're doing Cena in Boston against Punk, whereas before it's Cena versus Punk in Chicago. And that is, to me, still one of the best matches in WWE history. John Cena, CM Punk. Punk threatened to leave with the championship. As we said, he threatened to walk out of WWE after winning the title. And so he won it. He does the little kiss goodbye, blows the kiss to Vince McMahon as Punk walks into the night with the WWE Championship. We didn't know what was going to happen after that. The follow-up was not good. Let's call it what it is. The follow-up then was not great. You don't have to worry about the follow-up now because it's Cena's final match. But still, something to think about. So do you let Punk kind of get through all this other stuff with Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker? Those are two ready-made singles matches for CM Punk. Go back to Rollins again. Do a fresh match with Braun Breaker. That can take months, right? This isn't the old WWE. You're not going to have it back-to-back weeks. You could do this for 6 months. So you got a tag team match with Reigns potentially. So you've got all those things in play for CM Punk. And so, I mean, I think, again, you're going to do one of those two versus Cena as the last match, either Punk or Cody. And so how do we get there? We'll find out. But now we know for sure that Cena versus Truth is happening because Truth just got his ass put through the announce table. And so I realized I saw the beginning of this. So Cena walks in as Triple H is talking. And I guess Triple H leaves. And then Cena sits down. You can tell Cena's rattled. Again, he's rattled by the booze that he took in St. Louis. And so, yeah, give that a watch. You guys can check that out as well. And so I'm sure we'll talk more about this upcoming John Cena R-Truth match. But, okay. So if you're jumping in for the first time, yeah, Gerard jumps in here. Forgot Backlash was tonight. So I'm jumping in on the chat for the first time. Yeah, listen, I can't say that Backlash, was probably the most sought-out show for everybody because it was, kind of your B-level WWE PLE, but it was headlined by, a long-running top rivalry in WWE history. And so, yes, it was John Cena getting the win using the low blow and the belt shot to Randy Orton. So a lot of similar themes from John Cena. But afterwards, as I mentioned earlier, if you guys watch on the replay, my thoughts are more so, what did Cena do after? He's kind of showed that sort of emotional aspect, getting to him a little bit, these crowd reactions and all this other stuff. He's let out the frustration. When will John Cena go back to the good side? Is it starting to get to him? Well, he was so pissed off that he went after R-Truth and there. So, all right. Let's see what we have. And, yeah, Lorenzo brought it up earlier. Wanted to note that. Yeah, talking about Cena getting emotional a bit after the match. And I think that's your story moving forward. All right. You guys tell me, what was your match of the night? I gave you my match of the night. I thought it was the opener. I thought Jacob Fatu, Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest, LA Knight. I thought that was great stuff between those guys. And again, probably shouldn't be that big of a surprise, right? When you consider all the talent in the match. Anytime you get these four ways and you just put the action into it, the way that they did, I thought it was tremendous. And Jacob Fatu's he's just a stud, right? I mean, man, I'd like to go back and watch the videos we did at the time when Jacob Fatu debuted, and we're like, uh-oh, like this guy's different. He's built different. And so far, that's proving to be the case. So, yeah, thought that was, to me, I thought that was the match of the night, which, I don't know, it's kind of been a common theme for some of these WWE shows recently, right? You had the women's triple threat, WrestleMania 41 on night 2 there. Now they open up this one at Backlash with what I thought was the best match with the four-way. So, yeah, really good stuff. And, yeah, I mean, again, everything else I thought, look, as we said, this was a show that was kind of hampered by the fact that the scheduling, you had this 3 weeks after WrestleMania. You're not going to get, weeks and weeks and weeks to build everything up. You had to go pretty fast with some of this. But, I mean, listen, to get to the 5 matches, I mean, to me, the only one that felt like it was kind of thrown on the card out of the blue, maybe. I don't even think out of the blue is the right word. But, like, Dominik versus Penta was the last match thrown on the card. But it still delivered. I mean, it still was a good match, I thought. I mean, Dominik, a couple sequences there where Dominik, again, you see why this guy, it's not just because he's Rey Mysterio's son, right? Like, dude is just, he's brought it. I mean, he is just, yeah. I mean, he's become his own man now. And so, Dirty Dom has kind of become his own man here in WWE. But shout out to Right Hand Cam, member of the Tribal Chiefs here at Wrestling Reaction. If you guys want to get in and support the channel, you can do that. The Tribal Chiefs, yes, you'll get some bonus content occasionally, but you really are supporting the channel. If you guys want to support me doing more videos, more live streams for you guys, talk more WWE stuff, which you kind of have plans to keep doing, and I think I've kind of got a revamped idea that I'm going to run past you guys in a minute and see if you like it. But yeah, you can join, $3.99 a month. That just supports the channel. $4, I don't know how much you can buy for $4 these days. But yeah, that just supports the channel. Appreciate Right Hand Cam. Give him Backlash 9 out of 10 on there. So I appreciate Right Hand Cam as always. But Robert jumping in, another long time watcher of the channel here. Appreciate him as well. Was at work, didn't watch the show, but wanted to know what I thought. Yeah, I think, Robert, it's worth some time. I mean, this was also the difference between this two and WrestleMania. This wasn't a 4-hour show, right? And I think that was, you definitely felt like, hey, this was your B-level show, went about, 2.5 hours, 2:45, something like that. I didn't think it felt like it was a show that dragged. I mean, it moved pretty, as well as most WWE shows move in this era, right? You're going to get the video packages and all that between, but I thought it moved fine, thought it flowed pretty well. And again, most people's thoughts of this show are going to be built on the fact that it was kind of quickly thrown together. because it's in this, sort of the death spot maybe of being right after WrestleMania 41. You can't compare to to what WrestleMania 41 was from the build and everything like that. But again, there were some pretty dissatisfied people coming out of night 2, and I thought, given this being the direction they went with Cena, you knew you were getting some of the same here. It was going to be a lot of sort of smoke and mirrors to get a long John Cena match in the main event at this point in his career, and they did that. And you also, again, had to convince people that Orton was going to win, even though he wasn't, and they tried to do that. And so how people thought about the main event, I think, will mostly be the thought coming out of this. But everything else was about what we expected. They were all, again, fine to good matches, I thought, and really, this show, though, was built around Cena and Orton, and that was kind of your 1A, 1B, 1C here. And so whatever you thought about that coming out of it is probably going to be most people's thoughts on this show overall. So, again, good to see you, Robert, and again, keep jumping in here with that. So, okay, Gerard's going to throw out a scenario here. Just seeing this, haven't even looked at it yet, but I'm going to pull it up. Here's a scenario for you. Cena versus someone for the belt in an I Quit match. Cena loses for the first time, then literally quits and walks out and pulls a Batista. Yeah, well, hey, that could be one way to do it. If you're going to get John Cena out of there, you know what? I quit. I'm done. I'm out of here. But yeah, I think they're going to have some pretty creative matches for Cena, I would think, the rest of the way. Because remember, we talked about the dates. Cena brought up the dates. How many's he got left now? 25, 24, something like that. So that number's ticking down a bit. But we still got a ways to go to get to December. So, yeah, some of you guys just now seeing Cena put R-Truth to the table. Yeah, if you missed that, it's worth your time. Take about 45 seconds. Go check it out. John Cena putting R-Truth through the table. So, yeah, I think that's where we're at. John Cena R-Truth, Saturday night's main event. It's going to be my prediction on that. So we'll see what happens there. All right, let's see what else we got. Yeah, the typical hometown guy losing. That used to be the WWE way, right? Hometown guy always loses. That changed a little bit on Triple H a bit, but yeah, everybody's just jumping on the Cena R-Truth thing right now. I'm seeing it everywhere. Tremendous. I thought they would save it for one of the TV shows, but you know what? They like doing the sort of buzzworthy press conferences, as we know by now, because usually we're doing this live stream and something big happens at the press conference. And so that is your something big for tonight, is Cena taking out R-Truth. But, all right, I mentioned you guys, I got some ideas for some stuff I want to do moving forward here on the channel, and I want to know what you think. So I think one of the things we're going to start adding into the mix here is, throughout the week, again, I don't always get a chance to do a video every day. You guys know I have little guys running around, and so don't always get a chance to do a video every day like I was kind of at the beginning of this channel a year or so ago. But one of the things I'd like to do is do kind of a weekly long-form WWE reaction show for you guys where I kind of talk about the biggest, topics of the week, biggest storylines, that kind of stuff. And then you can kind of listen to it in one sitting if you want to, watch it in one sitting, or you kind of get some of it sprinkled out throughout the channel during the week. So any of you guys who obviously listen to some other stuff, Solid Monster does a great job. Guys like that, they kind of have their weekly show, that sort of stuff. So I'd love to do something similar, but we'll see how it goes here on the channel. So I know you guys are always asking about what else you're going to get channel-wise. So something else I'm thinking of here for you guys. So, all right. Brian's going to ask too here. And by the way, I know, Brian, you asked this a couple times. I just saw it in the chat here. But do you think Solo and Jeff Cobb are going to turn on Jacob Fatu? Well, you've got to think the way they're setting this up. It seems straightforward, and I feel like every time things seem straightforward, what's going on with this whole Solo rogue version of the Bloodline, it wasn't always that way. So, again, the Tongans are going to come back at some point. Where do they fit into the mix? And look, right now I think it's safe to say like Jacob Fatu is the odd man out for a good reason. He's the odd man out because he's just so way above everyone else in that group, right? And even when you bring Jeff Cobb in, Jeff Cobb's a big deal, but Jacob Fatu is still, to this audience right now, to WWE fans, he is the biggest deal, right? He is a monster. He's on another level. And so I think you're going to have to do something there, but I'm all for it because I want to see Jeff Cobb versus Jacob Fatu, as I said earlier. Sign me up for that match. Give me that match anywhere in the world, and I'll watch it. It would be tremendous. So, all right, let's see what James has to say here. Appreciate you jumping in, James. Calling it right now. Says Cody Rhodes returns to get the rematch with Cena, and this time The Rock will return, but this time Cody will side with The Rock after how the crowd turned on him. Now, I like this thought from James because remember, The Rock spewing out all the stuff that he spewed out on the Pat McAfee show. one of the things he said, and we kind of knew this before, it had been reported, I think, that the initial plan was for Cody to actually sell his soul to The Rock and turn, right? That's what The Rock wanted. At least that was the report out there. And so it seems like they still want to get there at some point. And like we mentioned, yes, the crowd sort of turned on Cody there towards the, end of the build to WrestleMania 41. And then when you do what you did to Cody at WrestleMania 41, kind of making him look, let's call it what it is, made him look a little weak coming out of it. That's going to knock the crowd's opinion on Cody a little bit too. And so, if you get a little more of those, when Cody's going to make his triumphant return here at some point, and kind of the time away, I think is good for Cody, because I think it'll help the crowd reset a little bit. But it's going to be hard to just completely wash that taste out of your mouth, right, of WrestleMania 41 and the way it ended. And so you're still going to have that thought about Cody in there. Well, come on, Cody, you couldn't hit this guy? Everything John Cena did to you, and you just sat there saying, you know what, I don't want to hit him. I don't know if you can get away with that in 2025, right? So I don't know if a babyface can get away with that. And so if that happens, as James said here, if he comes back, Rock comes back, then maybe The Rock gets what he wants. He gets a heel Cody Rhodes. But for now, they know they like Cody selling that merch. And, I think we'll see. I think Cody's return, listen, it's not just a complete layup with Cody's return anymore. Like, you got to get this one right because of the way the crowd was reacting whenever, you went into that match. So, yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with Cody when he comes back. We know we're going to get Cody Cena too, but curious to see what that looks like. And who knows? Could that be it? December, Boston. All of a sudden, Cody's turned. John Cena is now, shoes on the other foot here. Could that be the way they do it? The irony. We'll see. I don't know. There's a lot of options you could do with it. But, all right, what else you guys got? We'll hop off here in just a bit. So let me know any other questions, comments you have coming out of WWE Backlash 2025. You're hopping in for the first time. Go back and watch this on the replay. Shared a lot of thoughts on the matches, the fallout from John Cena and Randy Orton, and all the other matches on the card. But, again, I appreciate you guys. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button as well. So we got new videos, live streams, shows coming up here on the channel. And again, got some sort of maybe weekly long-form stuff coming up for you. I'm going to start doing another special Monday thing I've got in the works. I think you guys will enjoy some rankings that I think you'll appreciate. We might start doing that here as soon as next week. So, yeah, I appreciate you guys, again, as always. But, all right, what else do we need to talk about? Again, your questions, comments, all that. I still haven't seen anything on Lyra Valkyria because I was really concerned about Lyra and the shot she took to the face from Becky Lynch. So if someone could maybe see if we can find an update on her. I'm looking at it now. But, I know kind of Becky going after Lyra's fiance in the front row. That was an interesting sort of heel move there. But, yeah, I think Lyra, as I said, I think it's been the best she's been on the main roster in this program with Becky Lynch. On the mic, I think, again, match-wise, great stuff. And look, if she did come out of it with the nose busted up or something, right? Think about what that did for Becky Lynch's career. Wasn't as visual, with the blood and all that we got from Becky several years ago. But I thought this was a really good sort of start to this, kind of next era maybe for Lyra here with Becky back in the fold. So, she was really good, I thought, in this match, and she's been really good in this program. So, all right, so people continue to ask about Jeff Cobb. So, who was the guy with Solo? Yeah, Jeff Cobb, let me look up Jeff Cobb's age. I said earlier, I didn't want to date the guy in terms of, like, age. But, yeah, I was going to say, he was above 40. Yeah, 42. So, Jeff Cobb's 42. He's going to turn 43 in July. And he's really, Jeff Cobb's been around the block. He's been all over the place. Been in New Japan for almost a decade now, I guess, before he left earlier, what was it, this month, last month, whatever. He was in Lucha Underground at one point, if you guys followed that. Back in the day, a decade ago, that was now. My goodness, that's a wild thing. New Japan for a while, had a couple matches in AEW. I was in Ring of Honor, all that stuff. So, yeah, I said earlier, I thought Jeff Cobb would get to WWE way before this. I thought he somehow would made his way to WWE several years ago. It just didn't happen. And so, yeah, now finally joining the fold. But he's a hoss. And I don't want to compare him to Jacob Fatu because they're different guys. But I think when you see these two get in the ring together, when they start to put Jeff Cobb in the ring in matches, you will see that this guy, if you've not watched him before, he's something. He's impressive from just an in-ring sort of technical power standpoint. There's just so many things he can do. And like I said, yes, he's going to continue to get on up there, more tread on the tires as he ages. But I think he's still got some good years left in him to be able to kind of have this one sort of maybe career-defining run here as he finishes up his career with WWE, because you would think this is where he finishes his career, again, based on age and all that stuff. So, yeah, I think if you haven't seen him before, Jeff Cobb's pretty impressive. So, I think he's pretty impressive. So, all right, again, you guys weigh in. What was your match of the night? We didn't get a lot of thoughts here earlier, but yeah, give me your thoughts on what you thought of these matches. I just, I'm always going to refer to the Jacob Fatu match because I'm like, this guy is just, he's so good. And what was that sequence they had in there with Jacob Fatu where Drew McIntyre's legs were like hanging on the turnbuckle, and Fatu turns it into just one of the wildest sequences you'll ever see. I thought that was one of the most impressive things on the night too. So, yeah, this guy is just, he's money. And we'll see when he eventually makes his way from U.S. title type of level with Solo and the Jeff Cobb thing. He's going to be there for a while now. But, hey, once he takes that next step, like we're talking World Heavyweight Championship material, maybe Jacob Fatu's the guy who eventually has a chance to either take the title off of, let's say, a Jey Uso, a Seth Rollins, a Braun Breaker, somebody like that, right? You can see that playing out a year from now, something like that, I think. But maybe sooner. Who knows? But for now, Jacob Fatu's got plenty to do here with that. Corey wants to know here, too, by the way, asked this question. We didn't talk a lot about the match because we got into the Hard Truth Cena thing at the press conference. But Corey says, seriously, what was the point of Gunther versus McAfee? I think, to me, this is definitely, it felt like it sort of started the trend, right? Gunther was frustrated after WrestleMania. He takes out his frustration on the announcers because it's the easiest target, right? You can't go out and just beat up fans. So you take your frustration out on the announce team. So you get at McAfee, get at Michael Cole, all that. So, all right, Gunther has shown that he's kind of regaining that edge a little bit, all right? Because he showed no fear against Pat McAfee. All right, great. But Pat McAfee's an announcer. Michael Cole's an announcer, right? So now Gunther just keeps picking on people because he's a little more confident now. All right, I got my confidence back. I went and beat up some announcers. Great. What does that really prove, right? But I think what it's going to prove is that he's going to keep doing this, maybe to other people, not announcers, but other people, until eventually there's only one man who can stop Gunther. Only one man at this point in 2025 who can stop Gunther, and that is Goldberg. You got to think Bill Goldberg's coming back at some point soon. For the final match, two-night SummerSlam, I've got to think that is a realistic possibility that Goldberg's final match comes at SummerSlam. And I've got to think Gunther is a likely target for that. But you could also do that, on a Saturday night's main event or something like that too, I suppose. They got one of those in July, I think. As we said, the card's pretty full from a scheduling standpoint over the next several months. They got Saturday night's main event coming up in a couple weeks. They've got Money in the Bank coming up a couple weeks after that. They've got Saturday night's main event coming up in July. And you got the SummerSlam coming up early in August. And so, yeah, there's a lot of matches you got to get to. And so I think if Goldberg's going to do his retirement match, which all signs indicate that he's going to this year, I think it's Gunther. I think Gunther, by the way, and what that does is it keeps Gunther out of the title picture because he doesn't need to be in the title picture right now. And you can't go back and put Gunther in the Intercontinental Championship picture, the United States Championship picture. Like, to me, Gunther is just someone who is going to continue just to hover in the world title picture in some way, shape, or form. Doesn't always have to be in the title picture, but this is a way to keep him out of it. And so, because you're not going to go back to Jay or anything like that right now, maybe you can revisit in the future. But for now, Gunther steps away from the world title scene, and something bigger is in play. Like, he's getting his groove back a bit, right? Until Goldberg steps up to him, and then we see how that goes. Once he beats Goldberg, maybe that sends him back into the world title picture. That's my early prediction. Anything can happen. Lots of ways you can go with it, but that's my early prediction as to why they're doing this now with Gunther. So, yeah, we'll see how it plays out, though. All right, we're going to hop off here shortly, guys. I appreciate you, as always, jumping in. And, yeah, again, do me a favor. Hit the like button on your way out. Hit that subscribe button. Helps out the channel. And, yeah, an interesting Backlash. Never thought this was going to be the show of the year or anything like that. Just did not seem to be setting up that way. This felt like the show after the show, right? The show after the big show. That one's always the toughest because you got to, again, you got new champions, and you try to convince people that they're going to lose the title very quickly, and we just know that's not what we usually expect in the Triple H era. And so, I thought there would be one title change. I thought Becky would win, but that didn't happen. So the champions retain, and to me, this was just kind of your, stay the course, and we keep going to bigger and better things. And like we said, 2 matches seemingly set for Saturday night's main event. We know Jay versus Logan Paul is officially on the card, and we fully expect John Cena versus R-Truth to be there too after everything that happened after, the press conference and stuff tonight, and with Randy Orton. So, So I think clearly that's where we're headed. Money in the Bank. We're going to start getting those now, you would think. Start to do the qualifiers, get everybody ready for Money in the Bank. That's a month from now. So, yeah, I mean, we're officially Money in the Bank season. So how about this? We got 2 minutes here before we hop off. You guys give me your early picks for the men's and women's Money in the Bank winners. Who do you think it's going to be? I might have some thoughts this week with some thoughts on who could be the early picks to win the men's and women's Money in the Bank. Could Sami Zayn be a possibility? Could he be someone where if you give him the briefcase, then what do you do, right? You got Sami Zayn potentially out there with John Cena or with Jey Uso. Could that happen? Or does Sami wait and win the Rumble next year, which I think he's probably one of your favorites as it stands right now. Could happen. What about the women's side? There's a lot of potential options, I think, on the women's side. I think, to me, that made the most fascinating one because you got a lot of these NXT call-ups. We've seen Roxanne Perez. We've seen Julia. You could do something with Jade. You could put Naomi in there. Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of options on the women's side. But you guys are weighing in with some thoughts. Who's going to be the, potential winners for the men's side? Well, one vote here for Mac himself. Corey's going to go Logan Paul. That's a possibility. Michael is going to say Jimmy Uso for the men's, maybe. Women's going to say Becky or Bayley. Yeah, I said earlier, I'm curious to see if Becky and Bayley will be in the women's or not. I would think they probably factor into that, right? We'll see. But you got a lot of options, as I mentioned. I think on the men's side, could you have Sami Zayn? You've got, people like the newer guys, right? The guys that are kind of back in the fold. With Rusev, you got Aleister Black, you got Carmelo. Could you do something? Guys like that, maybe if you really want to catapult them into that next stratosphere. I don't think you need Braun Breaker with the Money in the Bank or anything like that. Or again, do you just go with the top stars? Do you go with the Drew McIntyre again, who won it last year? And do they try to go that route again and do something different this time? Maybe. So a lot of cool options, I think, to work with the Money in the Bank this year for both men's and women's. But like I said, I think maybe more intrigued for me on the women's side because I think you've got a lot of potential storylines that are going on right now. And again, I think, that's where you tie in the Jade, Bianca, Naomi stuff. And you got ones like that. Like I said, you got the NXT call-ups and people like that. So how do you do it? We'll see. But we may share some thoughts on that coming up this week with some early thoughts on Money in the Bank. But all right, guys, we're almost at our hour here. I appreciate you watching. Michael's going to go solo. Good solo, maybe. Potentially win the Money in the Bank. We'll see. Appreciate you watching again, guys. Always love the support here for these live shows. Enjoy these more than anything I do here on the channel. Get to talk with you guys. Just chat after the show. And so, yeah, always a fun time. And again, we got some big shows coming up here soon. We'll try to do more of these for. So appreciate your support of the channel. Hit the subscribe button. Leave a super chat. Hit the like button. Helps out. Like I said, got some fun new things we're going to try here on the channel here moving forward. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. Let me know. Always enjoy the feedback. So, all right, I appreciate you watching. Let me know your thoughts on Backlash in the comments if you're just jumping in on the replay. And again, we'll talk more about everything else in WWE here moving forward. Thanks, guys, for watching as always. I'll talk to you soon at Wrestling Reaction.